Welcome to the newest episode of Saved by the Books, where two ladies with opposite reading tastes discuss all things reading.
Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to another episode of Saved by the Books. We're back with another bookish discussion, and today we kind of don't really have a plan, which works out because both of us have a headache. So we're here, we're chatting about bookish stuff, and that's what we're gonna do. Anyway, we're gonna talk about tropes today because I felt like it was a good topic to talk about as a bookish podcast. But honestly, I feel like I know what a trope is, but I never think about tropes in a sense of like, let me search out this thing.
Right, like let's search out this book just because of this.
Yeah.
Like, and I just want to only read that type of book.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because I am like notorious for like getting on like binge reads of like, I only want to read like werewolf romance, or it happens a lot with romance books, I think because of Kindle Unlimited. Because
Probably.
You can just like read one and then go search for another one and then search for another one. But I never think of them as tropes, but they kind of are. But yeah, so we've been looking up some lists and Reddit threads and fun things like that to talk about some of the tropes that we see in different genres. So yeah, you want to talk about YA tropes?
Sure. I think one of the biggest ones we've seen, and it's because of Harry Potter, is the boarding school trope.
Yes.
And I mean, even recently we're seeing it kind of move on to the adult world with Leigh Bardugo, with, even though it takes place at Yale,
I was gonna say
it still has that, I think, vibe.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. Not that
I don't know, I
I've
haven't
read
read it.
House, but I don't know, I think boarding schools is kind of like that big thing, or like taking place in a school, like where they live.
Yeah, like schools. I was also thinking like private schools. Like there's a ton of thrillers that take place like with private school students.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as like whether I like that or not, I think it just depends.
Yeah, I think one of the most recent ones I've read, I don't think I go searching for them, but it's Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins, takes place at a boarding school in Scotland, and that's a YA, like, contemporary romance. It's with two female main characters, but it kind of had that thing, and I think it worked, and I enjoyed it because it was Scotland, and that's one of the big areas I love, historical and contemporary stuff, and I would live there if I could. But I don't know, I mean,
and then there's also, going off of Harry Potter, the chosen one trope, which I feel like, I don't know if you noticed it as much because you weren't reading fantasy until like last year.
Right.
But like there for a while, every single book was like the person, like the protagonist was chosen to do something.
Right.
And it was like, why?
I know, I'm trying to think, like, I mean, I did finally read all the Percy Jacksons this summer. I mean, Percy Jackson's a prime example. There's another one recently.
Girl of Fire and Thorns. I actually really love that series, but it is a chosen one trope, and it is kind of that part of it's kind of annoying.
Well, and I even kind of feel like there's some elements of that in Game of Thrones.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, with
especially
Jon Snow.
I was gonna say with Jon Snow.
I mean, that's like classic, and we know how that all ended.
See, and then that brings up another trope. I'm telling you, it's like once we start talking about one, like I just start thinking, but it's like the not false royalty, but like they discover their royalty at some point in the story, and like that's what happens.
Well, and see, and I love those. Like when like an average person kind of learns that, and that jumps into another trope about like an average person either dating a royal or just they find out they are a royal. I mean, I've talked about it before. Princess Diaries was like my big book series.
That's true.
That I read when I was high school, I think, late middle school, something.
I won't tell you how old I was.
No, hush. But anyways, yeah, be quiet now. But I mean,
like
that was my favorite.
It was one of my favorites,
well,
too.
and just like I said, with the whole boarding school one with Her Royal Highness, and then before that, Prince Charming, like, those are all those royalty based. And then I know there was something we read for one of the first, I think, Enchantathons. I forget. And
I'm
it was
thinking of Prince in Disguise. You know that romance
yes,
we
that
read?
one. Mm-hmm.
So basically it's this girl, and she is the younger sister of this other girl who's marrying like the Prince of Scotland or some territory near Scotland or something. I don't know. But it, like, I always think of that book because the characters were from Tupelo, Mississippi.
Right, which is not far from us.
Yeah.
It's actually where I got my dog Poppy. So that's
like
where she's from.
Like, we could be in Tupelo in like half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's where Elvis was born, if that gives you any clue. You know, important things in life. But also, those are the types of movies I'll watch. Like the classic Hallmark movies. I'm all about the royalty. And then now it's even bigger because of Meghan Markle.
And I mean,
becoming
even
a
with,
commoner. Kate Middleton.
I was gonna say with her, like, first, even though, wasn't she like a noble, like she was noble?
No, she was technically a commoner.
Okay, so she wasn't noble, but her family just had money.
Yes,
so that kind of got her in that crowd.
because they had their own family business that in like a party, event planning business.
I'm more of a Meghan fan. So.
I love both of them. So not that that's what this is about.
Though if we were going to start talking about Prince William, he has kind of disappointed me lately, but I guess that's all I'll say there.
Okay.
But no, it is true. Like, even like British monarchy, like both of us are like obsessed with learning about the British monarchy throughout history.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think, and that gets into, I think, our genre preference, but...
And even that, like, going off of that, Elizabeth Woodville and Edward IV.
Yeah.
Because she was just standing on the side of the road and she managed to snag herself a king, so... I mean...
I know, I guess we're going really down this
I know, I'm telling you, it's like, this is why, like, I kept telling Becky, I was like, we're just gonna start talking, and then like
I know, because I was
come out
right, because I've been worried about, I was like, okay, tropes, because when I read a book, I don't actually, I know some people, they'll automatically pull out what tropes they see and have reasons why they like or don't like, and I'll just be like, oh, I like this book because, you know, I don't really, because most of the time I read for enjoyment, so I'm not really looking in depth unless it's actually for work or how it was in college or high school or whatever. And so when it comes to these, I'm not seeing it as much. But I mean, even I'm currently reading, when we're talking about the average person in Royal, when it comes to Cora Carmack's, and that's fantasy with Rage and Roar, you kind of...
Yeah, for sure.
And that also brings up another trope about a royalty being in disguise, like the prince in disguise. I mean, that's a big theme.
And Cora Carmack wrote a college romance series, and it was like a sports romance, which is another kind of like tropey thing, which once again, I feel like with romance, I never think of it as a trope because I'm just like, I want to read sports romance, so I just like find them.
I think of it like it's a really like subgenre, like way down in that whole thing. I don't know, because it would be multiple levels down with contemporary romance and then college romance or adult. Like, I don't know. I mean,
no, I know. I'm trying to think of like, I'm trying to think of like things I don't like because I know like when I'm looking for stuff, there's things that I'm like, no, I won't like.
Okay, well, the big one, and this is kind of like, we kind of pushed off this whole trope thing for a while because I'm like, I need to be prepared, which I guess I don't. But I recently read Colleen Hoover. Sorry for those not watching. EXO's trying to eat our little notes about the different tropes. So, sorry.
He is a mess today. He's just trying to get into everything.
And it's about, it may storm, it's thinking, and so that just messes all of our lives up here. So, back on topic. I recently read Colleen Hoover, Slammed, and it was almost, I should have DNF'd it like day one. And I know people love everything, but the whole teacher-student thing, even though it was just, I think, a 4-year age, like, no, 3-year age gap.
See, I get why, like, it's like a hard no for you, but like, if it's like high school, but it's like somebody who is like a senior in high school and they're 18, and then like the youngest age you can be for a teacher, like, I feel like there's some like sometimes I'll read it.
Well, and the thing is, this is 1821 because it ended up being a student teacher,
so like
and
that
I'm still, I don't know what it was, but then some of the things, it was just a clear, like, I told her, I said, this is a, like,
but no, I get it, because, like, even, like, doctor-nurse romances, I'm not a huge fan of those.
Or even Patient.
Yeah, Patient Nurse, no. That's a no. What was it, like, Me Before You? Yeah, but
I haven't watched, I watched or read it yet. I have it on my shelf.
I won't be reading it. Like, I just won't, so don't
because that's a caregiver type of thing. Which is on my shelf, so we'll see. But I mean, and I think that comes from, I mean,
Probably
our
just,
professional
yeah.
life. And me growing up, I grew up around people in medicine. And so it makes it, and I've worked in a hospital and stuff like that. So it's very clear. But I think those are common things that we see. I mean, even it transfers over to fan fiction. I mean, if you looked at all the ones, because a lot of fan fiction's brought into, I mean, it had these same tropes,
for sure,
because people just want to look for more with those same characters.
Like 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh goodness. Okay. Yes. Exactly. So,
but
again,
even then, that was like the trope was like a rich man falls for like a not well-off girl,
right?
And she's like quiet and mousy and only reads like.
And that actually has several. You have like the billionaire status or whatever, millionaire status, but then the other trope is, you know, it's like the ugly duckling type of situation. And I mean, we've seen that children's literature all the way up. Like, they end up becoming in their own and falling, you know, getting everything they could possibly ask for.
Which I don't really like look for books of like a billionaire, but like I don't think I would ever, I don't think that wouldn't be like a thing I wouldn't read.
Well, and I think that goes into like, it's very similar to royalty. Like,
yeah,
you know,
is.
so.
Yeah, there you go. Mostly because like, it's convenient for them not to have to stress about bills while the plot's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it covers everything.
Yeah,
they don't have to worry about, like, pipe bursts, you know, how are we going to pay for this? Like, average day things. And I think that's something with literature we want to escape, so we may not want something of our average life. I'm
trying to think of more stuff that's, like, kind of, like, in the YA, but like I said, this whole episode is just going to be unorganized. We're just going to be going from, like, one thing to the next.
A big one, Fae characters, which I have not read. Cruel Prince, sorry guys, and I don't know what else.
I don't think she's read anything with the Fae.
But I do know all I hear a lot of the times is Fae.
You didn't even watch True Blood, did you?
No.
I would.
It was like out when I just never was interested because I wasn't big at the time into anything vampire-ish or anything.
Yeah, no, like I'm saying, like that is a very like un-Becky show.
It is. it's really
very much like I don't think Becky would watch this. Like I don't think I would even like call you over and be like, let's watch True Blood.
Well, I will say I did watch Vampire Diaries when it came out I may have seen a few episodes of Buffy, but still, no.
Vampire Diaries has a lot of tropes, and actually Buffy was built on a trope.
Which was?
We'll go back to the thing, but basically the reason Buffy came to be is because Joss Whedon, the creator, he was always seeing all of these like slasher flicks and like horror movies and stuff, and the little blonde girl would get killed, and so he was like, what would happen if like the blonde girl ended up being a totally like kick-ass person and like turned around on the monster or the killer or whatever and ended up defeating them.
Well, that makes sense.
And so then Buffy came out of that, and then that's why she's blonde and all of that. And then also like there's the chosen one trope,
because she was
the chosen one girl in every generation.
Love triangles, I'm sure.
there is a pretty prevalent love triangle. I actually read an article recently that argued for like a lot of other love triangles.
Because wasn't it Buffy and Angel was one, and then who was the other guy?
Spike.
Yes. I didn't get that far.
But even then, like, the whole, like, Angel Buffy thing, I feel like could be a trope because he's a vampire. And it might not have been a trope back then, but I feel like we've definitely seen it now. But he's a vampire and she's a 17-year-old girl, and, like, what is this 250-year-old vampire doing? Like,
Edward Bella.
Like, what, like... And when you think of it that way, it is kind of like, what? Because I always thought of it more of, like... he's waited like this long to find somebody that really like fits him or her or whoever the vampire is. But then you think about it, you're like, wait a minute, no. You've had 250 years or whatever his age is to mature and become a person. Like,
yeah. And that kind of bounces off the whole enemies to lovers. Like you have people on opposing sides or whatever.
And that's definitely one of the tropes too. Yeah, you're
where
totally
they shouldn't actually be together at all, whether it's because of vampire and vampire slayer, or
maybe that's why I liked them so much.
And so enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
But then
actually I will say this, so I rewatched Buffy in May. You already know this, but they might not know. So yeah, I rewatched it in May, and you guys, I was a die-hard Buffy and Angel shipper. Like they were like my OTP for the rest of my life, right? I didn't like them at all in my rewatch.
Really?
Yes, the whole time I was just like, oh my god, Angel, shut up. Like, why are you trying to tell her what to do? Just leave her alone. Like, I was seriously like, oh my god, I have changed so much.
Well, I'm thinking of that Charmed because...
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and see, I watched Charmed, so I'm not completely out of the loop when it comes to that type of stuff. But that was a complete... And the same thing with Three Sisters. Like, if the sets of threes.
Yeah, even,
that was a trope.
Like, going back to the enemies to lovers things. Hello, Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
Like...
The classic and all the spin-offs since then.
Even Shakespeare used some tropes.
Well,
he probably
Pride and
invented some tropes. Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice.
See, and I was actually...
Darcy and Elizabeth.
I was telling Cody recently, because I was talking about Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, I read maybe like 7%.
I was about to say, yeah, I know you haven't finished it yet.
And I literally read 7%, okay? And I, like, the thing is, I know the story, because I've seen the movie. I've probably read, like, one of, like, the kids versions, you know, where they're like adapted for kids or whatever, because I read a lot of classics that way when I was younger. So like, I know the story. I've seen a bunch of retellings. One of the retellings is like one of my favorites, but like for whatever reason, actually reading Jane Austen's writing, I was like, oh my god, I don't want to do this.
How are we friends?
I know. I mean, I will maybe one day.
But then that also goes off the trope of, in that, with the wealthy guy and the poor girl type of thing, like the average, because
oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, you know, the opening line is just all about, you know, a woman in want of a, you know, a wealthy man. And I know I just butchered Jane Austen, but that's okay. And then I just thought of another one, but I recently read Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, and it's the whole rags to riches type of thing. Not that he got rich,
yeah,
but
for sure.
But just, it just reminded me of that whole thing about,
well, when you're literally
people,
like begging people for a second bowl of gruel, like there's only you can only go up from there,
right?
So, like,
right. I mean, yeah, he ended up family and all, but I don't know, like, just thinking of all of that is just picking up on it from the classics all the way up to all the different
I'm trying
things.
to like pick out more tropes from Harry Potter because I know they exist, but I'm thinking about like Hermione, because I know like her character archetype wasn't one that we saw very much,
like a strong female.
Yeah, and she was, honestly, it's Emma Watson's fault because she's so dang pretty, but Hermione's not supposed to be pretty.
Well, but same thing
with Draco. With Draco, actually, he's not supposed to be good looking.
Well, we know with Neville Longbottom how that happens by the end of it. But then also like Princess Diaries, Mia, the ugly, you know.
Yeah, she was totally like the ugly duckling, and even, I feel like by the end of the Princess Diaries, it kind of flips, because like she's royalty and she's well off or whatever, but she totally doesn't go for any of the like well off guys. Like she still goes with like
the average.
And even then, that could kind of be like the best friend.
Well, and that's what I was thinking of. Hermione is a female, like best friends. That, but also like just a male and a female staying best friends, and there is nothing there. Yeah. Like, you think of Harry and Hermione.
There was something there. There was more there than there was with Ginny, I'm just saying.
Anyways.
I am so not a Harry and Ginny
I think
fan
they're cute.
At all. At all. No.
Yeah, when we get to the epilogue and then the horrible cursed child, yeah, no.
But yeah, like Hate to Love, I'm not a huge fan of.
No.
That's one that's like all over romance, and I hear people say, like, if you want a good hate to love,
the
like,
hating game.
Is it. I just don't like it.
See, I didn't enjoy the hating game.
So I think that one is another trope that I also don't like, which is like the office romance.
And see, sometimes I'm okay with the office romance, or you know, that type of thing.
I'm okay with it if the office isn't a literal office. You know what I mean? Like if it's
like a grocery store,
like they're in the same club or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just like if it's not like
a same organization, not at work.
If it's like not a company that they're at, like I'm okay with it. But if it's like they're aligned with the same something or other, I don't know.
See, I think it's a lot of times fine, except, I mean, sometimes it gets kind of weird when it's like a boss and an employee. But I think it depends on how that is done. But I think a lot of people actually meet, you know, their partner at work, and so.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I mean, so I'm okay with that.
And I'm okay with it happening in life. Like,
right. I know, but that's how I was just saying, that's like why I think I'm okay with it, is because it's a very common occurrence. But I do think, like, I didn't like The Hating Game, and that was an Office, and it was, you know, Hate to Love and all that, but I've liked other ones that took place because of how it was. Like, I think it was Attachments. I think it was by Rainbow Rowell. I think she wrote it. And I actually kind of like that. So, you want to go back to Faye?
Oh yeah, that's what we were.
Because it's been a little bit while,
yeah.
Because I have not.
I feel like that is a definite. I see in that, once again, like, I don't know if I would call that a trope, because we were talking about this before the camera turned on, but I feel like a trope to me is something that is a plot device that helps propel the plot forward, whereas like some things like Fae or like a werewolf or royalty or whatever, like some things to me, like that's just a subgenre, but we can talk about it as a trope.
Right.
I feel like it's really popular and it's had a resurgence in recent years because of Sarah J. Maas.
And I think also Holly Black.
Well, yeah, but Holly Black has been writing Fae since, like, I was in middle school.
Okay.
So she's been around writing Fae. Another one is, like, Julie Kagawa. She writes a lot of Fae books. And I used to really be into them. Now I'm kind of, like, burnt out on them. Same with, like, vampires. Like, I was really into vampires for a long time, and now I'm just kind of like,
Yeah, because you were excited for The Beautiful to come out, right?
I am still excited, even though I've heard kind of... No, that's Crescent City, because that's Sarah J. Maas's adult.
And we talked about that before. We confused them another time. Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm still going to read those, don't get me wrong. But, yeah. We were talking about, like, one of my writing projects has a lot of tropes I don't actually like in it.
Well, and that's the same thing for me. Like, the one I did, and we both realized that, is that we were actually writing the tropes even though we don't necessarily like them in books that we read, which I find really interesting and funny. Like, mine is kind of like going back to a small town, which is a trope that we see quite a bit in, like, adult and in, like, contemporary romance. And so...
My other writing project is very similar to that, but I'm okay with it.
But I like, it's, you know, I teach in a small town, and I think that's kind of where it was inspired from. But I'm still not, I don't want to read.
Enough, my small town is inspired by there. Who would have ever guessed?
And I bet it's the same small town. Anyway, sorry guys, if you've listened to other podcasts, you know I teach where she lived.
I grew up where she teaches.
Yes. So, same small town or small county or whatever you want to call it. But I think that's a very common one. And I think the reason why I'm not all about it anymore is because I've read so many, whether it is YA or just regular contemporary or romance or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just one of those common themes. And then moving on to kind of like another very common themes and all of that is, you know, marriages of convenience. So whether
in historical fiction, primarily,
that is primarily where it is. Like, and then they eventually fall in love.
In fantasy a lot too.
I was gonna say, because I mean, if you Game of Thrones, Khaleesi and Khal Drogo and stuff like that, which
I still miss them.
I know
we didn't get long enough with. Which even then, like, and I guess you can confirm, I've always heard, like, in the books, like, it's way more brutal, and they don't actually like ever kind of come to like any semblance.
So,
but yeah, so I guess, I don't know, I guess I like the TV version of them, since the books aren't the same. Even EXO's sad about that.
I think another one we've seen is like the villain switching sides.
I was gonna say we're missing a major one that I bet people are like yelling at us about right now, which is love triangles.
See, I thought we talked about
I don't think we did. I think we were skipping around.
Because I was gonna talk about that too, but yeah, love
triangles. Because I feel like that is like, if you ever like search on YouTube for like tropes I don't like or whatever, that is like the first one on the list is love triangles.
I think it's because of Twilight.
probably Twilight was a very poorly done love triangle. But also Vampire Diaries is a love triangle.
I don't remember much of it.
Oh, well,
sorry,
I was trying to start a discussion there.
Oh, it's because it's between the two brothers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Which is another thing that could probably be a trope. Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, sorry. When I get migraines, my brain doesn't work properly. So, but yeah, like, I really don't like if it's a love triangle, depending, like, obviously, I'm trying to think of another one where it was like a love triangle, but it wasn't, I didn't hate it because it was like a close friend and then like this random person, so you knew it wasn't gonna ever happen.
I feel like the issue with love triangles is that for so long, especially in YA, they were like put into everything because they sold books. Because like freaking Hunger Games was like that was a freaking sad love triangle. Like that was a love triangle that was never a triangle, okay? Right. And yet it was in there likely to help sell books because we had the success of Twilight, the whole Team Edward, Team Jacob thing. And so now it's like become a thing, like Team whoever. Right. But a pretty well-known love triangle in YA that is done really well, you haven't read it, it's The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. And
I've read some of them.
So do you remember who I might be talking about?
Jace and
No?
Oh my gosh.
Those are the Mortal Instruments.
Oh, I haven't read them. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. Everyone's screaming at me right now.
She is a sham of a reader. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay now. Let me pull out my stats.
No, God, what's their names? Jim, Tessa, and Will.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have guessed any of those. Because the furthest I got up was like the first Clockwork. Was it Angel or Prince?
I
may have made it through
Angel, I think. Yeah. And I don't know if it's really a big thing in that one. But that one is an example of a love triangle that I feel like was done in a realistic way. Because the thing is, love triangles happen in real life. But
I don't think to the extreme that
not to the extreme
they're written.
I think because like we're thinking of Twilight and that extreme. Yeah. And that was not realistic. No. But, you know.
Well, but also thinking of the Mortal Instruments. Let me get the name right.
I'm just kidding. I totally don't care.
I know you don't. Sorry, guys. You're getting the real us right now. I really don't like, and it kind of even, we saw it in like Star Wars and stuff, the two characters who think they like each other, but then they realize they're brother and sister. But we know how that turns out in Mortal Instruments. So I have read that much. But like, you know, if they figure that out, like long lost, and then it's only, and I think nowadays it could be, you know, it's revealed through a DNA test, or, you know, someone needs a kidney and they find out they actually have their family members. I just don't like that.
Yeah.
At all.
Let's go back to marriages of convenience, because I just realized I completely interrupted that whole thing to talk about love triangles.
And so, but marriages convenience, we mainly see that in historical
I'm usually
romance.
Into it.
I'm okay with it, and a lot of times it's,
I like it a lot.
Like a family member, not a family, but like a friend of a family member, or like a long lost, like, or the neighbor next door type of thing, when it, you know, well, I shouldn't say neighbor, but like the person in the manor next door, the estate next door, and so they do it for whatever reason.
A lot of times, especially because this was like just a common thing in history, was people would send their sons to like be trained by other people.
Right.
And so it was like the daughter of like that family.
Right.
And the son.
Well, then I'm thinking those that,
and of course we see it all the time in the Tudor time era, which is one of our favorites.
Right. Well, and also like in Regency periods, but I'm trying to think of like the spinster, the wallflower.
Oh, and that's a huge trope. And I somehow find myself reading it all the time, but I wouldn't call it my favorite.
See, I'm okay with it, but that's, I think, because the two authors I mainly read do it well. And
I will agree there, because I have read some very not done well things from other authors. But
and I'm thinking those that have supposedly been like compromised, but back then it was like, honestly, they were just unchaperoned or something.
For like 2 minutes. Like,
right, and so then
he's
they
defiled
marry.
you forever.
Right, and so then that person has to, sorry, EXO. That person ends up having to marry because of that. And
that
then they eventually
reminds
fall
me
in love.
of one that popped up in the Philippa Gregory Plantagenet and Tutors a lot. InstaLove.
Yes.
And I feel like that happened a lot in history, especially, like, it happens in YA and stuff too. And we've actually talked about this before because...
The Beholder.
Yeah, because Becky thinks that's InstaLove. I disagree. I don't think it was InstaLove. I think it was Insta Attraction.
I do think it was Insta Attraction, but I think there was more because she was like, oh, I gotta find someone I love so I can save the kingdom. And
but see, like, I chalked that up to the fact that she's a 17-year-old girl,
right.
And like, whatever. But yeah, so I feel like that's one that is especially like very like subjective. Like, what I think of it might not be what she thinks of it, like whatever. But it happened a lot in like historical romances, and I noticed it in the Plantagenet books because like they would see each other from like across like the courtyard at the palace, and they'd be like, I love them so much, and they'd be like writing sonnets and letters to each other and stuff, and I'm like, dude, you talked to them for maybe 2 seconds, like with like 30 chaperones.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
But I think, yeah, we do see that, I think, in a lot of contemporary books still. It's just one of those things,
And I feel like with InstaLove, I don't think it's one that, like, you would see, like, in a synopsis of a book. You know? Like, you're not gonna, like, I feel like, Hate to Lovers, like, you're gonna see that in a synopsis. You're gonna know that's coming. Or, like, a company romance. You're gonna know that's coming. But, like, InstaLove, I feel like is very one of those things. It's, like, you read it, and, like, you see it, and either you're suddenly turned off by it, or you're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
I'll
you can go with it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like that's not one that I would instantly, like, disregard and, like, not read.
So,
personally.
Yeah, let's go back to the villains switching sides, because Paige actually in one of her writing things, she kind of had that happen.
And I'm not into it.
Right, and so that's what's kind of funny. And I think you see some of it like in Game of Thrones with, you know, the evil one, the next episode then switches sides and becomes good or whatever. Or they help out in that situation, but then still remain evil. But I think we see a lot of that with fantasy.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm trying to think of some.
I know, besides Game of Thrones. And then right now I can't think of character names.
I know, I'm just sitting here and I keep just thinking of Buffy because I'm thinking of like Angel losing his soul. And I'm just like, that has nothing to do with this. I mean, that is him switching sides, technically. But it's because of, it's because of like a outside influence, sorta.
Well, I'm even thinking like Percy Jackson, there's one of the characters, like one of the gods or something that ends up, you know, hating Percy and, you know, his dad and all that, but helps out in that situation because they kind of choose, it's like, to them, it's like lesser of the two evil. But then like the next time they're like, you know what, you better watch your bag because, you know, I may kill you type of thing.
See, and like, I feel like when you first said that, I just think of like, especially like younger things that are like, the villain switches sides and discovers that everything's all rainbows and butterflies and it's all happy and everybody just loves the world and everyone in it. But like, and I don't like that.
No.
But if like they switch sides because of like a legitimate reason, like let's say the apocalypse is happening and the villain and like the good guy, for whatever reason, they're like, oh, we need to work together to stop this apocalypse. Like, I'm okay with that. So I guess sometimes I'm all right with it.
And I know I've read another one. It's like, well, I still hate you at the end. Like, they're still like, they still go back to being enemies.
This
and I can't think of what it is.
And I know you haven't watched it, and I don't know how many people have watched it yet, but 13 Reasons Why season 3 really kind of plays with this trope a lot. And it kind of brings up a lot of like psychological and philosophical questions. That's all I'll say since I know it's pretty new, so I know a lot of people probably haven't watched it yet. But I also feel kind of like 13 Reasons Why is a good example of just like villains in general. Like, because it really just depends in that show, like who you are as to like who is the like the bad people in the school and who are the good ones and stuff. I don't know. I'm a fan of that show as an adult, but I don't know if I would let my kids watch it, to be honest.
No. Sorry, that's my teacher opinion. I'm like, I think there's very
good... I know, like, you've gone on, like, school, like, events and stuff where, like, the kids are talking about 13 Reasons Why.
And that's actually why I watched the first season. The main reason I didn't watch the second season was the big event it led up to, because that's just... It's too real, I think, in my life, and it's unfortunately, it could happen. And I do know, like, I just couldn't, you know, because it really could happen. I'm not going to watch. I don't want the anxiety around an event. And if you've watched it, you know, and I just, you know, I choose not to, I guess, have that anxiety that leads up to it, because it is a very real issue we have to deal with today.
Which, that brings up one of the main events with the season 2 is the trial. Which brought up another trope I don't like, which is usually, like, if it's a romance and somebody is a detective, like, I'm probably not going to read it. I don't know why that is, but and the weird thing is I'll watch shows like that, but, like, for whatever reason with books, I'm just like, no, I'm good.
I went through a phase where I could read them, but, and that was the whole, oh my gosh, Sue Grafton's The Alphabet, and that came actually from my dad. He used to read every single one of them, and I got through, I think, halfway through The Alphabet, and I stopped. But I was okay with that, but I also don't really watch shows where there is a detective usually, or at least I don't anymore. But even thinking of that, I think of, like, Bones, where, you know, you have those mysterious clues and stuff. Like, I went through a total period of like National Treasure and the Da Vinci Code, where people are searching for, you know, ancient history or trying to solve this ancient code. And I think that was a really big one, probably 10 years ago, like when all those came out.
Yeah.
And I haven't read, oh, I forget who wrote the Da Vinci Code.
David Brown?
Dave Brown. Yes. And I haven't read his latest one, but I do have it, because of course I do, because that's who I am. But I mean, I just, you know, that's a big thing, and we see it in movies too.
Yeah. But I would say I almost, like, I see that in movies more often, but the thing that it makes me think of is there's a YA book trilogy called The Conspiracy of Us. It's very similar. It's really interesting. I've only read the first one. I haven't finished it, but it was interesting.
I think one of the biggest ones we haven't talked about that we're about are retellings. So I think, and that's, I kind of feel like a subgenre.
Yeah, I feel
at this point, but I think we're all here for retellings, especially if the author makes it their own. Like A Curse of Dark and
I am kind of over it. I'm not gonna lie.
I go through phases.
One that I wasn't gonna read until everybody started, like, raving about it was A House of Salt and Sorrows, or whatever that title is. I don't know. But yeah, because it was a retelling, I was just like, I'm over it. I don't want to read it. But then everybody started, like, raving about it, so I'm gonna give it a try. Yeah. Since our Barnes and Noble had signed copies, so yeah.
See, but I'm always here for Pride and Prejudice retellings, like, no matter what. I did go through a phase of Beauty and the Beast.
See, and I never, like, okay guys, Beauty and the Beast was, like, my movie, okay, like, because it came out when I was, like, toddler age, okay, and, like, little girls in Frozen, like, that was me with Beauty and the Beast. Like, I literally wanted my mom to play it 24/7. If I was awake, I wanted Beauty and the Beast on the TV. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I have all the books that I have, because I want a library, and that's become a problem as an adult.
But, like, actually thinking about, like, I don't think I ever really thought of that, like, as a romance or something. I don't know, like, until I was an adult, and, like, now I see it. But I'm just like, I never thought of that as, like, some, I don't know.
To break the curse, though, they had to be in love.
Yeah.
Before the last rose petal.
Yeah. Whatever.
But I will say the only Beauty and the Beast retelling I have read that I've liked was A Curse of Dark and Lonely.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the only one that's been really well done and has made it their own.
A Court of Thorns and Roses is also a Beauty and the Beast retelling.
Which I haven't read yet.
And she very much, like, she goes more, like, with the, like, old fairy tale versus the like, reimagined whatever. I don't know. I feel like I would call that a subgenre, too, though.
Yeah,
like, I don't know if I would necessarily call that a trope. But... I don't know. Looking up some, though, I just saw one, which is so true, is the protagonist as an outsider. And literally, like, I feel like I write that. I see it in, like, all the time over just, like, the course of life and reading anything. I feel like it's in every genre. And I feel like it's because and I can be wrong, but, like, I feel like most readers in school, like, we were the nerds.
Yeah.
So, like...
we kind of were an outsider.
Yeah, like, I've never been, like, the person that walked into a room and could talk to anybody.
Right.
Like, ever. That's just not me. So, like, I feel like that's why it's such a prevalent
And
trope.
I feel like it's still kind of a thing today. Like, reading... I know there's a resurgence with it, but I still feel like an outsider is being such an avid reader. It's just not a thing. Like, if I want to read at lunch, people are like, why are you reading? Like, why? And I'm like, well, I'm doing a read-a-thon. I need to get all this, or this is just a really good book I can't put down. Like, before I came over here, I almost was like, hey, can we postpone this, because I have one chapter left in Rage. And I'm like, one chapter. But
yeah, and that kind of reminded me of another one, which is I had something else to say too, but whatever. Anyway, that reminded me of another one, which is, like, just, like, the bitchy girl is, like, the villain. And, like, her only purpose is to be a bitch to the protagonist so that she can be, like, this device that, like, creates conflict.
Right.
And that one is definitely coming under a lot of hate, justifiably, because, like... even if you don't get along with somebody, that doesn't mean that, like...
you should be awful to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. So with the, like, protagonist thing, I feel like it's so prevalent in reading because that's who we all were. But also I was watching Alexa Dunn, I think, and she was talking about, in some video, I might have even been, like, a live show she was doing with somebody else. She was talking about how, like, there's a prevalence of, like, red-haired girls in books in general, and I would think that's hilarious, because if you ideally you would, like, write something and therefore we would all read something that reflects the world we live in, and it's totally cool for your character to have red hair, but it's also, like, a small percentage of the population. And yet it's so often that we will see, like, auburn hair or, like, red hair. Green eyes is another one. Like, who do you know with green eyes? Who do you know with actual real green eyes? I bet you it's not very many people, if you even think about it.
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, it's just interesting, like, what we see that's, like, more prevalent in reading stuff than the real world. But those are definitely some. But let's see what else we've got.
I think another big thing kind of going off of that may be, like, the cast of characters. I feel like now more and more books, especially with fantasy, it's like this big cast, or sci-fi with, like, Illuminae and stuff. You have this big cast of characters instead of, like, the one or two main characters that follows. Or you have the like, in just regular fiction, literary fiction, you have that family dynamic where it's that just big group, and it's how they write about how they all interact.
And I feel like the whole trope of, like, the parents, like, in YA, just, like, being absent, because it's like, where are the parents?
I was about to say, thank you, Disney, for that one.
That's, like, kind of, I mean, it's still there, like, I mean, all over the place. But I have noticed there are more, like, YAs that'll have, like, a parent that's there. This other one just, like, popped up on this, on this list I'm reading, and it's starting a rebellion and overthrowing the government.
Well, I mean, Roar and Rage, like, there's
Hunger
a rebellion
Games.
in it. Divergent.
There's so many. And I don't remember where I heard it or read it or whatever, but it's like that type of fiction pops up, like, with, like, certain political climates, which is interesting. I don't know, know. You guys know by now I'm just a total nerd for like random facts like that. But
well, and I think, I mean, we can look from the whole historical standpoint, because we know like I mean, Les Miserables, that was all about the rebellion by, you know, the French.
I didn't even bother to watch the movie, so.
Oh my gosh. But anyways, yeah, the whole thing is about that. Or, I mean, think about Anastasia and stuff. Or
yeah, for
stuff
sure.
based off of Marie Antoinette. And it's all about those rebellions. And I think we have a lot of books kind of historically based off of those, whether they're classics or, you know, more modern day themes. Another big one, because we've read What Alice Forgot, are those with memory lapses. And so,
which is one of the tropes I was writing, and I'm not a huge fan of, and yet.
Yeah. Right, because I mean, I know if you go back and look, because What Alice Forgot was, what was it, our May read, April read for the podcast, and we talk about it, like how, like, you wanted an explanation, like, this is not real, like, it could not really happen.
Well, that was because of the medical
right, the medical side of it, and I think, but that kind of goes into it. But there's a lot of memory lapse, like, type things, especially in horror and crime.
Which this one, meaning me, was up at 2 a.m. the other night researching methods of like life rescue with drowning. Because I was reading a book and it just didn't seem realistic, and it turns out it really wasn't. So there's that. But yeah, medical inaccuracies is one of my like things. Once again, I have a lot of things
your pet
that just irritate me. Yeah.
So I don't know.
There's a lot of tropes out there. I know we didn't even come close to covering what is out there. I honestly kind of figured this episode, like, we might do another one later on if we come up with more tropes to talk about. Because they're just like in every part of fiction. I feel like it's so subjective, like whether you like them or you hate them. Like, you can hate something that I love, and you know, vice versa. And I don't think they're a bad thing.
No. Because
I think it helps us find things that we like and we want to keep reading, and that keeps us reading, which is always a good thing.
And I think, I mean, we just all have our opinions and like what our tastes are so different from each other. And I think that's what's kind of nice about the like book community, is because almost everyone that I've seen respects each other's opinions on this stuff, and you can actually have a very, you know, intelligent conversation about why you like or why you don't like something, and especially when it comes to tropes. Because, and like we've said, a lot of these tropes we actually, there's some we don't like, but when we write, that's what we write, and which makes...
Well, and it kind of makes sense if you think about it. Like, if we're writing it, it's because we want to do better. And the camera stopped recording again, so hopefully it didn't take a lot. But anyway, I feel like we were kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, we were.
As far as like, yeah, obviously you can dislike or like whatever tropes you want. There's a gazillion of them out there, so if you can't think of any other ones, I promise you they're there, but I can't think of any other ones either, so you're not alone. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So definitely talk to us on Instagram. Let us know what tropes you like and what tropes you don't like, and all of that fun stuff. And let us know, because I would be really curious to know if there's a trope that you don't like, but then you tried a book and it, like, you ended up really liking that
like
book.
It did it really well.
Yeah. I would love to hear about like those types of books. So yeah, let us know all of that. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes or whatever podcast app, because it really helps us out. Or hit the thumbs up button if you're on YouTube. And subscribe, because we'll be back next week with some other bookish discussion. So yeah, bye.